Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about a fancy, a feeling, or a Ferris.
And most importantly, about an Emma Thompson.
The Emma Thompson.
The Emma Thompson.
The Emma Thompson. Today we're talking about 1995's Sense and Sensibility. This week is the movie's 30th anniversary. What? Want to feel old? I do. And we knew we had to bring a very special guest on to chat about this perfect film with us. So we are joined today by friend of the pod, actor and writer Erin Darke.
Hi, Erin. Welcome back to Love to See It. So excited to have you on to talk about this absolute gem of a film. And as I was saying before we started recording, Claire and I got real self-indulgent with the notes because turns out I didn't think I could be more in love with this movie, but turns out like the more fun facts you learn about this film, you're just more obsessed with it. Which often is, I will say, not the case when you dig into the making of the movie.
It's true.
Sometimes there's like some real darkness there.
I know. Emma kept sending me like swoon-worthy stories from just like the making of Sense and Sensibility. And I'm like, this should be a movie. So let's start with a little background and then we will get into the details, the plot, the romance.
Sense and Sensibility is, of course, an adaptation of Jane Austen's acclaimed 1811 novel of the same name. This movie was first released on December 13th, 1995 in the US, a few months later in the UK. And the adaptation, I learned doing this research, was really a passion project of one woman producer, Lindsay Doran. She had been wanting to adapt Sense and Sensibility for years. Her career started actually in like public television, and then she and her husband moved to Los Angeles. She ended up getting into like Hollywood, becoming an executive, and she really wanted to make Sense and Sensibility into a movie, mostly because she was like, this rules. There are two female leads. And how often do we get that?
Right? This is also how my high school drama director chose the play Arsenic and Old Lace when my best friend and I were seniors. And he was like, what are our options so that neither of them are pissed off?
Just Arsenic and I mean, a classic high school theater production.
Truly.
Also.
Exactly. Well, partly probably because it has two female leads.
Yeah. So true. So Lindsay was searching for years to find a screenwriter that she thought could do the novel justice, because she was like, I need someone who is skilled in the language of romance, but also who understands satire. And her contention is that a lot of people can do one, but not both. And then she met actress Emma Thompson. And she saw this little PBS sketch comedy series that Emma Thompson had done called Thompson, which included some satirical period sketches. And I read this Chicago Tribune article in which Doran says the language was very carefully done and it was funny and sweet. Exactly the combination of satire and romance I'd been looking for. So she asked Thompson to write the screenplay, even though Thompson had not written a screenplay for a feature film before. And she was considered like super risky by the studios. They were like, she's a newbie screenwriter. Like, we know her as an actress. Do we trust her as a writer? But Doran was like, this is our writer. Thompson spent like 4 years working on the screenplay. And eventually, Lindsay was able to find a studio to finance the film. Amy Pascal at Columbia Pictures finally agreed. And that is how we got Sense and Sensibility.
I love this idea that, like, she's like, it's actually very hard to find someone who can write both romance and satire. I think in my mind, those go together. Like, those are, because that's a combination that is just perfect in a romantic comedy. But we see from many failed romantic comedies
I was
that
gonna
it is a
say.
very specific overlap.
I mean, I was thinking about this because I was like, look at the romantic comedy slop we have gotten in the last decade. Like,
You need
Erin,
to be-
you write and have acted in this space. Like, it's an art.
It's absolutely an art. I'm a firm believer in the art of the rom-com and how it's underappreciated for the balance that a good rom-com writes between truly rom and com.
Exactly.
Um, I feel like I could do a lecture series about why
You
most things
probably
currently called
should.
rom-coms are actually rom-droms or roms or droms.
Often they're not, they're not even rom-droms because they're not even dramatic. They're just roms. They're just
Yeah.
here are two
Yeah.
people and they kiss once at the end.
Yeah.
They're like very bland.
Yeah. Not much of an emotional journey in between. The movie was directed by Ang Lee, and of course, we all know Ang Lee now. His storied resume includes Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, which came out in 1994, but his big films to, the English-speaking world came out kind of after Sense and Sensibility. We've got Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in 2000, Brokeback Mountain, 2005, Life of Pi, 2012. I mean, he's a heavy hitter, but back then he was he was still finding his career path. This was his first English language film.
Which is kind of incredible. And he gave an interview to the Daily Beast just after this movie came out, saying that he thought that Thompson and Doran were absolutely crazy when they approached him about directing the film. He said, "I was brought up in Taiwan. What do I know about 19th century England? About halfway through the script, it started to make sense why they chose me. In my films, I've been trying to mix social satire and family drama. I realized that all along I had been trying to do Jane Austen without knowing it. Jane Austen was my destiny. I just had to overcome the cultural barrier." It like makes me emotional. I think that's
so sweet.
so beautiful. Yeah.
I don't know, but I feel like that's part of why Jane Austen is so timeless because it is actually like I don't know. I was watching. Did a rewatch, obviously, of this last night, and I was like, there were parts of it where I was like, this is just a better version of The Materialists, like where like there is something that is
Yes.
like so
Yeah.
so timeless about so many of like the themes and the humanity within it, and like the humanity trying to break through different social constructs. I do think is something that like speaks to so many people.
That was the maddening thing about Materialists because it's like, yes, this is a very real, thorny, romantic problem. People have confronting this across cultures throughout time, and you just did a really bad job with that. Jane
And this is how
Austen
you
did a really
did.
good job, and
Jane
so
Austen
did
and Ang Lee and Emma Thompson did a very good job.
yeah.
And it
And
turns out that Ang Lee was like a very hands-on director. I read this write-up from like the Turner Classic Movies archive. He instructed Winslet to read novels and poetry from the era and report to him on them so she could fully understand her character's romantic side. He also asked the actors to write letters to each other in character. Since letter writing was the principal means of communication in Austen's day, perhaps his wisest suggestion was asking Winslet and Thompson to room together during filming so they could develop a sisterly bond. Both were going through painful breakups at the time, Winslet from a boyfriend, Thompson from her husband, and that brought them even closer together. He was like,
method
no, you're
acting
going to
man.
do your research. You're going
You
to
will
write a
live as
letter.
sisters.
Yeah. You're going to be sisters. You're going to write letters. You're going to like read literature from the era.
But I really love that they Lindsay Doran went out and was like, I'm going to assemble not a host of just very English people who are baked in this culture necessarily, but just people who understand the heart of the source material, people who understand the genre and who understand the human emotions and conflicts that we're exploring in this, and they can all bring their different sensibilities to this film. And I mean, Ang Lee, obviously,
He did
I
such a
mean,
beautiful job.
Such a
the
beautiful
perfect
job.
choice. So Ang Lee and Columbia Pictures ultimately persuaded Emma Thompson to star in the movie as well as writing it, as elder sister Eleanor Dashwood. She was a star as an actress at the time after her Oscar-winning performance in 1992's Howard's End. But she was a bit old for the role as originally written by Austen. Eleanor Dashwood would have been, I believe, in her early 20s, and Thompson was in her mid-30s at the time. Um, so they aged her up a little bit. she was going to be more in her late 20s because, of course, to a modern audience, a 21-year-old or 19-year-old is
Is not a
not
spinster.
a spinster. Yeah, she was 19 actually in the book. That's wild.
Yeah, 19 and 16 in the book. And so they were like, I think we got to age them up to like make this land. And also they just
Yeah.
really wanted Emma Thompson to play the role. And I think that it's an inspired choice. Also, Emma Thompson has said that she actually wrote the part of Edward with Hugh Grant in mind. As we discussed in our recent episode about 4 Weddings and a Funeral, this was like a big era for Hugh Grant as like a floppy-haired British man who had broken through for American audiences. He agreed actually to like take a lower salary on this film in order to accommodate the film's budget because he just like loved the screenplay so much, which I love. And Kate Winslet, this is also hilarious. Ang Lee originally did not want to cast Kate Winslet as Marianne because he had seen her one like major role previous to this, which was in 1994's Heavenly Creatures, and he hated it. So he was like, I don't want her.
He was like, this girl sucks. Absolutely not.
And they told her, okay, so just come in and audition for Lucy Steele instead, the smaller role. And apparently, I read that Kate Winslet just played dumb and came into audition and pretended she thought it was still for Marianne, and she booked the role.
I mean, she is Marianne.
She's
like,
perfect.
What a
I mean, if
massive error he almost made.
Also, like, what a Marianne thing to do. Just be like, no,
yeah.
I'm going to audition for Marianne. That's who this should be.
Also,
But my
also,
heart
like,
calls
such a
me
like,
to Marianne. It burns.
such a like 19-year-old thing to do because
Yeah.
you have to have that like delusion and confidence.
And sometimes it works, man.
I mean, when
Yeah.
you're Kate Winslet, I think
When
a
you're
lot of
Kate
things
Winslet,
work.
yeah.
You got to have the goods. The movie also, of course, has a completely stacked supporting cast. Alan Rickman as Colonel Brandon, Greg Wise as Willoughby, Gemma Jones as the sister's mother, Mrs. Dashwood, Imelda Staunton, Hugh Laurie, Tom Wilkinson, Harriet Walter. Everyone is perfectly cast. No notes.
It's so good. And Sense and Sensibility became a surprise critical and box office success. Worldwide, it ended up grossing $134 million. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Actress for Emma Thompson, Best Supporting Actress, Kate Winslet, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Picture. And Thompson won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay, making her, to this day, the only person in Oscar history to have won both a major acting category and screenwriting, which is kind of wild. I was like Googling, like,
for
is
now.
that true? According to Google, yes, she is. She remains the only one.
Yeah, one day when I get into acting and screenwriting, that's going to change.
Claire's
Watch
like,
your
I'm coming
back,
for you,
Emma.
Emma.
But yeah, this movie was mostly well-reviewed. It has 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics really praised the performances of Emma Thompson, Hugh Grant, and Kate Winslet, as well as the script, the direction. Many of the reviews also compared the film to the Persuasion adaptation, which also came out in 1995. I believe both Janet Maslin and Roger Ebert compared it rather unfavorably to that Persuasion adaptation, which still has like a devoted fan base, but a much smaller one. Like Sense and Sensibility is the film that has been more widely remembered. I rewatched it last night because I was so curious. I had
Persuasion?
forgotten it. Yeah.
And how did it stack up?
Well, it's a very good movie. Very well acted. It looks very different. Like it's not beautiful. It's much more looks more like a TV adaptation from the 1980s or something. You know, it's like hard
Yeah.
to square that they came out in the same year, but I think that it does have I think of the way that like many Austen fans like myself reacted to like the 2005 Pride and Prejudice versus the 1995 Pride and Prejudice, which is like what is this flashy, showy, like beautiful movie? Like it should be serious. And like I think that that was kind of the dichotomy that a lot of critics and some fans saw, which was like this movie is like Persuasion is serious. Like it really is like an Austen movie for the true heads. It's not all about beautiful dresses and scenes. And at the same time, I do like looking at beautiful scenes, you know?
I mean, here's my thing, because I will
Yes.
die on the hill of the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. I
Perfect.
can't with
It's
the 2000.
perfect.
I can't with the 2005, not because it's too beautiful and sumptuous, but because the reason that I love Jane Austen is because you are watching people try to find love through immense social constraints. Like they are so repressed in what they are both allowed to show and what they are allowed to do, and they are trying to figure out how to find love through that. And the 2005 Pride and Prejudice is like, what if they just like meet in a heath in the morning? And I'm like, no, that's not what Jane Austen
No.
is. That's not what I want from Jane Austen. I want, like, your challenge as a writer and a director making a film is to try and make me feel this love story with just like fucking, you know, fists clenching as they stare at each other across a room, because that's all that they could do. And so, like, that is why I'm like, I love Sense and Sensibility, and I love 1995 Pride and Prejudice. By the way, 1995, what a stacked year for Austen heads.
I was just
Incredible.
gonna
Crazy.
say,
But, like,
95
I love
is
them.
insane.
But, like, I love them both because the Ang Lee Sense and Sensibility found a way to incorporate all of that oppression, all of, like, the societal constraints on them. And they just made it, like, sumptuous and beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
That's
they,
why
like,
it's
didn't.
perfect.
Yeah, but, like, they didn't betray, like, the Jane Austen of it to do it. And that is why, yeah, perfect film, perfect adaptation, truly no notes.
I think this is what Roger Ebert wrote about comparing Persuasion with Sense and Sensibility is the production suffers from comparison with Persuasion because the earlier film looked simpler and more authentic. This one seems a little too idealized. We want note paper, not picture postcards. I beg to differ. I want picture postcards with a really beautiful letter written on it.
Exactly.
I think you're exactly right. And the interesting thing about Sense and Sensibility is that it is exactly about kind of juxtaposing the windswept heath romance mindset against the sort of like clenching a fist in the ballroom mindset. And so there must be some romance. Persuasion is not that movie. There is no windswept heath in Persuasion. So to make a good, authentic version of Persuasion, you have to have it be a little bit more note paper. But Sense and Sensibility has much more scope for the romance, and
Yes.
that's partly what makes it such inviting material. But then if you do compare Persuasion, like from 2 years ago with Dakota Johnson. That is
was
like
rough.
Persuasion, but like what if instead of clenching and like restraining and social constriction, what if she just got wine drunk all the time and was a bitch to everyone? Right? Like, so yeah, you can't lose that restraint and still really have Austen. But I think Sense and Sensibility is about exploring like how that impulse for romance, you know, how can you cope with that in a world where restraint is what will allow you to survive?
And you see both sisters kind of bumping up against those restraints. And you have Marianne, who is kind of pushing past those restraints at times and facing consequences as a result, which is why it works.
Yeah.
It's not like setting aside those constraints altogether. I almost always agree with Roger Ebert's reviews, and this one I was like, my guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it
I was
wrong.
getting annoyed. I was like, why is everyone comparing this to Persuasion? They're completely different books. They have
Yes.
completely different themes and they're different movies. Like, I don't think that they need to be the same style of
Right.
movie to
No, that's why, like,
be
I think
successful.
there's room for both. Why does it have to be like a competition?
I know.
Right.
And then also none of the reviews mention Pride and Prejudice. I guess because it was a mini series, so they
I
didn't
guess.
feel like there
But,
was
like,
a
look,
parallel.
The reality was that in 1995, we all won.
Yeah, it
We
was an
all
embarrassment of
won.
riches.
Yeah, it was an embarrassment of riches. Let's not pit them against each other. Let's just
Yeah.
appreciate
I know.
what 1995 was.
Well, this is like literally when I was preparing for this, I watched Sense and Sensibility a few times, and then I went back and I watched the entirety again, as I do often, of the 95 Pride and Prejudice.
I do, like,
was
once
just
a
like,
year.
95. Yeah,
it
no, I
truly-
find it very, very soothing.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, do I need therapy or do I need the 1995 Pride and Prejudice?
Yeah, ideally both. But
Yeah.
I want to talk about the 1995 Pride and Prejudice with my therapist.
she'd be like, enough. You don't need to pay me this much for.
We're only up to tape 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a lot of feelings. So yeah, Roger Ebert was not actually the biggest fan of this movie. He only gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. And he doesn't.
Incorrect. And he is
Wrong.
such a champion
Ebes.
for romantic films, usually.
No.
You know, we'll give him 1 L. Okay.
His contention is that Sense and Sensibility is just not a good book, which
Yeah.
is like a wild thing to say.
Hilarious. I found this hilarious.
He says, I like the wit, I like the charm of the actors, yet the film is not told as tightly or as well as Persuasion. Austen was not yet a great novelist when she wrote this story. And there's too much contrivance in the way she dispatches her men to London when she is done with them.
That's so hilarious.
My mind is blown by this.
I know. I was
Roger.
like, Roger. What's yeah, I had to
What
include
did
this
Sense
in
and
the notes. I was
Sensibility
dying.
do to you?
It harmed him. He hates
Imagining
this. I was
him-
like, you hate the book. You just hate
I'm
this
imagining
source
him as a
material.
publisher receiving this manuscript, and he's just like, nope, sorry, too many trips to London. No, I'm sorry, you'll have to take
Stop
another
going
pass
to
at this one.
town. The men can't always be going to town every time it's convenient. Janet
but-
Maslin at the Times, though, I think got it more right. She called the movie a sparkling, colorful, and utterly contemporary comedy of manners, and she praised Thompson as a crisp and indispensably clever a screenwriter as she is a leading lady, which, correct.
Correct.
What she did with like compressing that whole novel into the length of a feature film, and you miss nothing. You feel like you miss nothing.
Yes.
Truly, bow down.
No, it
Well,
it
it's
is actually
truly an
incredible.
adaptation, and that is a challenge often with Austen adaptations. There are very important scenes that sometimes pass over in just a couple of sentences with no dialogue in the book. Like, how do you bring those to life? Or do you write around them? Like, there are really wonderful passages of dialogue in the books that, like, maybe they aren't necessary for the plot. It's hard to, like, capture her throughout while still getting all those key scenes in. And the way that she's able to weave that together with her own words and also the words from Sense and Sensibility, it feels seamless. Even though sometimes she gets like a little bit feminist, but we'll get into that. We'll get into the feminism of it all. Very Greta Gerwig before Greta Gerwig. On that note, we'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get into the plot of Emma Thompson and Ang Lee's adaptation of Sense and Sensibility.
And we are back. Let's get into the meat of this movie because it is so good.
We get to have the meat. The Dashwood women do not get to have meat anymore because
Certainly not beef.
certainly
Too expensive.
not beef. They must economize because we open on the deathbed of Mr. Dashwood. He's summoning his son, John Dashwood, to his bedside, and urgently he tells him that their estate, Norland, is entailed to him. Mr. Dashwood's second wife and daughters will have only £500 a year, nothing for their dowries. He has 3 daughters with his second wife, and he says, you must help them. And John, rather reluctantly, promises. We cut to a scene in London with his waspish wife, Fanny, who is absolutely baffled by this turn of events. And we should say that John Dashwood is played by James Fleet and Fanny by Harriet Walter. They are
And Mr. Dashwood
Perfect.
by Tom Wilkinson.
Yeah.
In such a quick cameo. I was like,
Oh.
wow. High impact, though.
he sets the whole thing in motion. So Fanny, with her little like circular dark ringlets all around her face and her elegant black lace morning attire, is so confused. She's like, help them? Why on earth should we help them? And her husband explains that he plans to give the Dashwood women £3,000. It will give them interest to live on, like a chunk of money. He says, in these situations, you'd rather do too much than too little. And Fanny does not feel that way. She would rather do too little or perhaps nothing at all. And so she starts to coax him into believing that maybe less, certainly you don't want to do such a large sum. What if you need it? Like an annuity? Certainly not. Like she'll probably live forever if she's going to get paid every year. I believe we have a clip of some of her very clever persuasion.
£1,500 then. What do you say to 1,500?
What brother on earth would do half so much for his real sisters, let alone half blood?
Well, they can hardly expect more.
There's no knowing what they expect. The question is, what can you afford?
£100 a year to their mother while she lives. Would that be more advisable? It is better than parting with the 1,500 all at once.
But if she should live longer than 15 years, she'd be completely taken in. People always live forever when there is an annuity to be paid them.
£20 now and then will amply discharge my promise. You're quite right.
Indeed. Although, to say the truth, I'm convinced within myself that your father had no idea of your giving them money.
They will have 500 a year amongst them as it is.
And what on earth could 4 women want for more than that? Their housekeeping will be nothing at all. They'll have no carriage, no horses, hardly any servants, and will keep no company. Only conceive how comfortable they will be.
Incredible.
And then
She's
she
like,
says,
4 women.
and then she says they'll be much more able to give you something.
It's so economically just lets you know exactly how much to hate Fanny and exactly how much these 4 women are getting screwed in just like 2 minutes. You're like,
You don't even need to understand the finances of the era to understand what's happening.
Yeah. To understand
She's like,
that
they'll
they
be
have
so comfortable. They simply will never see anyone or go anywhere. Speaking of three women who are or soon will be marriageable age and probably need to go somewhere and see some people if they're going to have a future.
Absolutely not. I love that she's like, they're just women. Their housekeeping will be nothing. They'll do that labor themselves.
Yeah, she's like, they'll be so happy just doing absolutely nothing forever for the rest of their lives.
I also feel like this is one of the most efficient ways that an Austen novel establishes that the path to economic power for women is through marriage. It's like none of them get to decide how much money they need, what they'll spend it on, unless they're the one who is married to the man who has the money. And then you actually might have a huge amount of power within your household to make those decisions. So, meanwhile, the Dashwood women are in deep mourning. Marianne, played by Kate Winslet, is playing dirges on the piano. Mrs. Dashwood has been weeping all morning as she frantically packs up her belongings. Margaret, the youngest, is hiding in her treehouse. Margaret is an interesting character in the movie. In the books, she's much more very silly but young. And I think partly because she's on screen so much, and in a film, you can't kind of ignore a character as much as you can maybe in a novel. They have to give her more to do. And they're she just loves adventure. And everywhere she goes, a treehouse appears because, she needs a treehouse and an atlas. So they made her a little bit more proto-feminist. Eleanor, played by Emma Thompson, of course, is left to be the practical one. She is trying to urge her mother and Margaret to accept the arrival of John and Fanny. We even see her explaining to Margaret that houses are left to sons, not daughters. It's the law.
It's always something that I note in a modern adaptation of Austen is they have to figure out a way to tell the audience that estates are entailed only to sons.
Yeah. Well, and it is a little because some fortunes can be dispensed of otherwise, right? But there's always a piece of property in an Austen novel that is entailed. She makes gifts for the servants. She's making conversation with John and Fanny at the dinner table, being the polite sort of hostess as Fanny is bragging about her eligible brother, Edward Ferrars, and his barouche, who will be visiting soon. Yes, he's very elegant. He does drive a barouche. And Fanny, we every moment with Fanny, we are seeing that she's just the worst person imaginable.
It's incredible. There was one line that I think I texted to you, Claire, where she walks into the library and she's like, I hate the smell of books. And I was like, that is just an incredible way to signal that this woman is evil.
I know, especially like who's watching an Austen adaptation who can countenance hating the smell of books. It's like saying like, I've never really understood why people like dogs, it's just instant villain. But one way that they do this is that she asks Mrs. Dashwood to have Margaret give up her room to Edward so that he can have a better view while he's visiting. It's like, oh, I just want him to see Norland at its best. So just have Margaret clean out her things. But when Edward, played by Hugh Grant, arrives, he is nothing like Fanny.
Swoon.
Marianne pointedly asked after his view from his quarters, and he says, yes, I like it very much. The stables, very agreeable. And his sister is like, oh, but it looks out on the lake. And he says, oh, no, for some reason I was shown to one of the family rooms, but don't worry, I cleared it up. I'm very comfortably installed in the guest quarters. So he is going above and beyond to make sure that
he's a
the
mensch.
Dashwood women, they're getting what they deserve. Yes.
He's a mensch and he stutters and he looks like Hugh Grant. So
yeah, the perfect man, a stuttering mensch who looks like Hugh Grant. But he really is the perfect man. As we soon learn, he is not only a very considerate guest, he is also good with kids. He stumbles upon Margaret, who has been hiding from John and Fanny. He realizes she's reading an atlas under a table in the library, and he kind of like kicks the atlas under the table and distracts Fanny so that Fanny doesn't find her. And then he goes and gets Eleanor and helps her kind of tempt Margaret out into the open by claiming that he believes the Nile is in South America. And then Eleanor's like, no, it's in Belgium, I believe. And just tormenting Margaret, our resident geography nerd.
She's like, Abyssinia.
I love the idea of making her a geography nerd because I don't know if it felt this way in 1995, but it feels sort of like something that doesn't exist anymore. Like, we just have, like, Google Maps, you know?
You're so right.
Like, the idea of being like, well, I know where the Nile is just, like, no longer a distinguishing characteristic.
Or just standing around wondering where the Nile originates.
Right?
Yeah, like, you're just like, well, I have my tiny computer in my hand.
Right. Like, this is what, like, a really clever and adventurous young girl would be passionately devoted to learning about.
Like, I still think it's cool to learn about geography.
Totally.
No, it is cool.
Let's bring that back.
It is cool. Bring it back. Geography nerds, don't write in. I believe in you. You're out there.
Also, as you point out, Claire, and that several writers, including Devaney Lucer at The Atlantic, have pointed out, is that something that Emma Thompson seems to have done quite intentionally is to make characters like Edward kind of softer and more appealing to a modern audience by making them great with kids and like a little more playful. And so like all of the scenes with Margaret really play into our understanding of why Edward is someone that is like a bit swoony.
Yeah, he understands kids. He cares about Margaret's feelings. And he also is like, he's a future girl dad, right? Like, he's like, this Margaret can be a captain. She can be an admiral. She can be an admiral. She can learn to fence. Like, she can do anything a boy can do. And even just like in those details of showing him engaging with her intellectual interests and teaching her to fence, it does double duty of showing that he both is great with kids, which is nurturing, and also that he believes that girls can have interests that may have been unconventional at the time. And like nowadays, we're always looking around being like, where are the strong masculine role models for young men who aren't toxic right-wing influencers? And it's like Edward Ferrars from the 1995 Sense and Sensibility.
Yes.
He has integrity. He knows how to teach girls how to fence. Like, he has it all. Edward and Eleanor are immediately drawn to each other. They ride out on the grounds together and bond a little bit. He shares his dreams for life and how they differ maybe from his mother's dreams for his life. And we do have a clip of this.
My mother is determined to see me distinguished.
As?
Anything. a great orator, a leading politician. I think even a barrister would serve as long as I drove a barouche and dined in the first circle.
What do you wish for?
I've always preferred the church, but that is not smart enough for my mother. She prefers the army, but that is a great deal too smart for me.
Would you stay in London?
I hate London. No peace. A country living is my ideal. A small parish where I might do some good. Keep chickens. Give very short sermons.
You talk of feeling idle and useless. Imagine how that is compounded when one has no hope and no choice of any occupation whatsoever.
Our circumstances are therefore precisely the same.
Except that you will inherit your fortune. We cannot even earn ours.
Oh, I love that
Killer.
exchange.
Killer
so
line.
much. It's we cannot even earn ours just gives you chills.
This is where, like, whenever a Greta Gerwig movie, I'm thinking of Little Women, I'm sorry. When she does that, like, whole big speech in Little Women for Amy, I'm like, no, this is the way. Just a little, a little hint of awareness of the circumstances that constrict them as women. It doesn't need to be like a whole thesis statement.
Yeah.
That this says enough.
Like, we get it. We get it. It's very effective. Also, Hugh Grant is just so good.
This scene does so much, which is amazing because I don't think it's in the book. What she's done is kind of take, and I wish I'd had time to reread all of Sense and Sensibility, which I didn't. But from what I gathered in my skimming, what she did here was take like a short bit of description of the kind of person that Edward Ferrars was and turned it into this very self-aware dialogue where he is kind of like poking fun at himself and his sort of humble ambitions, and also at the sort of ludicrously high ambitions that his mother has for him. And so it transforms a bit of a passage that's just sort of like, he's not very interesting. He just like doesn't want to, he just wants a quiet domestic life. It turns it into this scene that showcases his sense of humor and his understanding of himself really nicely.
It also like does a beautiful thing where, spoiler alert, where it makes like his ending then actually like him getting to live his dream rather than like a sad thing that happens for him.
Mm-hmm.
In like I don't know, a nice way. I'm like, yeah, that is nice, rather than thinking of him as like, oh well, this is what he has to settle for in life because of what happens. It actually means like, oh no, he sort of
Freed.
he's freed to actually have the life that he wants to, and he'll be quite content with that.
Yeah. It's interesting watching some of this in this specific moment because the idea of just wanting a little house in the country to keep chickens is now very much associated with like a trad fantasy to me.
They're going
But
homesteading.
Before it was a trad fantasy, you know, I think a lot of non-conservative people also dreamed of returning to a simpler existence. And he just wants to keep chickens and
It
live
also,
a sort of
honestly,
quiet life.
For Edward feels a lot about escaping the restrictions of his family, who are like awful people.
It's also like in this era, like like if you were given a parish, that's a living, that's a home and a job and a living for essentially the rest of your life. It's like, I mean, it's not, it's stable, and it's not just keeping chickens because you don't have. It's just a stability. It's like a nice, stable life that doesn't exist anymore. Where you're just like handed a job that comes with a house and a salary that you will just have for the whole rest of your life. But I'm like,
Wow,
yeah, I can
sounds
see
so
how that
nice.
sounds appealing. Yeah, it's like your house with chickens, only like you don't have to worry about income.
That's what they used to do with the younger son. So really, this is just a tragedy of birth order here, that he didn't want to be the first son, the inheritor. He just wanted to be kind of like given a little nook to be shoved into, to be out of the way. So Marianne is not totally convinced, despite these affinities, that Edward is the right person for her sister. We see him reading poetry for the women while they do fancy work, and she is so frustrated that she stops him to demonstrate a more dramatic reading style.
It's so funny.
In the book, I think she is restrained. She just tells her mother later that she was really frustrated by his dull reading style. But the movie Marianne is a little bit more rude.
It's much better getting Kate Winslet like just butting right in there.
Yeah. And she tells her mother that she just wants more for Eleanor. She's like, he's lacking something. He's amiable, but so sedate. Can he really love? To love is to burn, to be on fire, like Juliet. And Mrs. Dashwood is like, well, Eleanor doesn't really share your feelings, so why does that matter? Also, by the way, Juliet died.
Yeah.
Do you need to die for love? And Marianne's sort of like, yes, I do think it's romantic to die for love. And then they laugh. But that night, Marianne visits Eleanor in her room to kind of feel out the situation. And she ends up asking Eleanor if she loves Edward. And Eleanor's response is so iconic that we do have to listen.
Do you love him?
I do not attempt to deny that I think very highly of him, that I greatly esteem him. I like him.
Esteem him? Like him? Use those insipid words again and I shall leave the room this instant.
Very well, forgive me. Believe my feelings to be stronger than I have declared, but further than that you must not believe.
And then Marianne is going around like imitating her, like, oh, I greatly esteem him.
I
like him.
It's just a perfect way to show us who these two sisters are in contrast with each other.
Yes. And this is from the text, like the original text. This is an Austen moment. But Mrs. Dashwood is a bit deterred from encouraging this romance when, while Eleanor and Edward are on a cozy-looking walk, Fanny informs her that their mother has high ambitions for his profession and his marriage. She says that her mother would disinherit him if he planted his affections in less exalted ground. And Mrs. Dashwood understands, and she is highly offended. But fortunately, a cousin has offered them a house in Devonshire for a reasonable rent.
I think for
And
free,
so-
right?
It doesn't really specify.
Okay.
I assumed
It's
it was
sort of like-
super low rent. Because they still can't afford beef.
Me too.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Well,
Maybe it's
because
just
I
super
think
low.
that what Marianne says is like even Eleanor can't protest that rent. So it's
That
either
rent.
like
Yeah.
nominal or it's
free.
I mean, they do out of their $500 a year have to pay for the two humans who work for them all the
Yep.
time, So it's not like they have no other expenses. They have two servants.
Thomas
but
and Betsy.
yes. But they've received this offer, and she had been holding off because she wanted to stay and give Edward time to declare himself to Eleanor. But now that Fanny has like snubbed her daughter, she's like, fine, we'll go.
She's like, we're getting the fuck out of here as soon as possible.
But what she clearly wants to do is instead invite Edward to come pursue his interest in Eleanor on a friendlier terrain. So as they're announcing to the family that they're moving out, she immediately invites Edward to stay with them. And from sort of her significant look, Edward seems to realize that there may be some expectations attached to this invitation. Before they leave, we see Edward approaching Eleanor in the stables, and he says he has something he has to tell her about his education. This is one of the scenes I always remember, like when she thinks he's going to start like proposing, and he's like, I have to tell you about where I went to school.
I'm trying to imagine if you thought a guy was going to be like, I love you, I want to get married. And instead he was like, have I told you about where I went to college?
Yeah. Have I told you about
And it turns
Mr.
out-
Pratt?
It turns out it's all a
educator?
roundabout way of saying that he's had a girlfriend this whole time. But that is sort of like another gesture to like the social restraints of the time, that he wouldn't just come up to her and be like, I'm secretly engaged. And
Yes.
I probably led you on. I'm sorry. He has to be like, anyway, I became like acquainted with a young lady while I was there. And I don't know what he would have said.
I
because
know.
He is
Well, I
interrupted.
think he did not know what he was going
He
to
didn't
say.
know.
He was stuttering
was
a
like-
lot.
He was like, how can I tell her about my secret engagement without telling her about my secret engagement. Well, first of all, she needs to know that I was educated in Plymouth by Mr. Pratt, who had a... And at this moment, Fanny bursts in, saying he must leave for London at once. There isn't a moment to waste. And she clearly is convinced she has prevented him from making a very infelicitous engagement. Oh my God. I can't talk today. Like, it feels very non-Austinian. And so she's looking at Eleanor very smugly, like, haha. This, for some weird reason, made me think about all those scenes in rom-coms where people run to the airport. You know, like, if I don't do this right now, it'll be too late. And it always seems so silly because it's like you can just text them when they land or something. But, like, there was a time when if you didn't propose before you rode off to London, you might not see that person again for, like, 2 years. And they
Right.
could have died in
Yeah.
childbirth marrying someone else. Like, you weren't allowed to even write to each other unless you were engaged. Although
Which-
Marianne, as we see, does not really take this to heart.
Well, that's why everyone thinks that she is engaged later
Yes.
on.
Because she writes him letters.
She writes him many, many letters. So without any sort of proposal or even an explanation, the Dashwood women move to Devon. They move into the cottage, which to me looks like a house, good-sized house that would cost maybe $1.5 million in the Jersey suburbs. But for them, it is quite a come down. It's like, yikes. Only 4 bedrooms? This is shocking. And they are greeted by Mrs. Dashwood's boisterous cousin, Sir John Middleton, his many boisterous dogs. And that they're going to be part of his like social circle. It's clear that part of the reason he offered his cousin this home is so that he could just like have someone over for dinner whenever he wanted. And now they have to kind of like dance attendance.
He's trying to
because-
goss. He's like, I'm trying to bring
Right.
more people into my social circle. I'm trying to gossip. Like,
Right,
I
he's
love
like-
that he lives with his mother-in-law. And it's just like, I mean, like, yes, if it was like
Obsessed.
you
Yeah.
and your mother-in-law, you'd probably be like, we need some more company.
Yeah. My mother-in-law is insatiable for gossip, and all I know is how many dogs people have. This
like-
is not going to work. In the book, I believe his wife is present. And
Yeah,
I
they-
think that for simplicity, they just cut her out. But then it's like, yeah, now he's just living with his mother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
they
he just
cut
lives
out a
with his
bunch of-
mother-in-law.
His mother-in-law, Mrs. Jennings. They also kind of come off as a couple because they are similarly very boisterous and like just kind of have the same vibe and seem like they're around
And
the same
honestly,
age.
like, they're closer in age than Kate Winslet and Alan Rickman. So it's
true.
By
Right,
far.
So, like,
You could say that about basically any 2 characters.
yeah, you do. I do
Yeah.
have to keep reminding myself that they were not a couple, and in fact, a man and his mother-in-law.
Same. So it's clear that they really just want some people to join their dinner circle, and the Dashwood women are sort of like, no, it's fine. We don't want to impose, and also we don't want to come over for dinner all the time. And they're like, no, you have to. We're bored. So soon they're at the Middleton estate every night, and we meet very quickly the most eligible bachelor in the county, Colonel Brandon, played, of course, by Alan Rickman, who comes in to visit them all while Marianne is serenading the group on the piano, and he looks awestruck. Later, we see Sir John Middleton encouraging him to pursue Marianne, saying he's in his prime, and Marianne would be fortunate to have him. But Colonel Brandon demurs. This felt like such commentary to have an older man saying, look, you're 49.
Yeah.
You're in your prime.
I feel
any young teenage thing would be happy to have you.
He's supposed to be like 40, right?
He's supposed to be
Like,
35.
Supposed to be
He's
35.
supposed to
Okay.
be 35, and Alan Rickman was 49,
49,
playing
yeah.
this role. I think he is still supposed to be playing 35 technically, but he reads much older because he is much
older.
And they
I
only aged up the Marianne character to, I believe, like Kate Winslet's age. So
Yeah, which is like 19. Yeah.
I mean, it does seem like perhaps it was almost necessary in a sense. You know, in the book, as in the movie, Marianne is like, he's old. He's like an old man. He has rheumatism. Like, he's
Yes.
old. He's got one foot in the grave. In the book, he's 35, and she's like, he is ancient.
Yeah.
Right? And I think we're so accustomed to seeing actors in their 30s romancing teen and early 20s actresses that it probably would not actually register that way for a lot of people in the audience.
Well, I was looking
unless
at
he was older.
who is the cast of the Sense and Sensibility that they are making that's coming out 2026.
Oh, right.
And it's just like a stone cold hottie 38-year-old playing Colonel Brandon. I'm like, he reads the same age as the 25-year-old who's playing Marianne.
Yeah, it's
and-
interesting
Yeah.
because it's like in casting up, they have better captured the spirit of what that age would have felt like at that time.
But it is funny.
But it is funny.
You are just
I mean-
like, this is a huge age gap, like even larger than in the book, because he is so
Yeah.
much older
Right.
than the character. Also, I believe Mrs. Dashwood is supposed to be 40.
40.
Yeah, 5 years older.
Yeah. I mean, they
Yeah.
aged up a lot of the characters to make it seem a little bit more suiting how we would think of those characters now. But like, Willoughby is 30. So he is closer to the age Colonel Brandon would have been than Alan Rickman. Greg Wise, that is, I believe, was about 30. Like, these people are all like aged up. Willoughby would have been younger. I believe Edward Ferrars was supposed to be like 24, which is why he keeps saying he was educated at school. That's where he met his fiance 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It makes it sound, based on his age in the movie, like he was at school in his late 20s. Like, what's he doing?
It's
Are you an
grad
adult?
school, Claire.
I was at grad school studying under Mr. Pratt in Plymouth. I was just a boy of 28. So Colonel Brandon is a little bit, he understands. He's like, I'm old. Like, she would no more think of me than she would think of you, Sir John. Like, she's not, but he can't help himself. He immediately basically begins showing her special attention, even though she is openly disgusted by everything about him. Mrs. Jennings is also very eager to encourage this match. And as she is telling Eleanor how they should kind of like make it happen, she's like, he really needs this. He had a tough time when he was younger. He was in love with a ward of his family's 20 years ago, but his family forbade the match because she was poor. She was thrown out. He was sent to the army. And then the lady was, quote, passed from man to man. And when he returned from India, he found her dying in a poorhouse. Very, very tragic story. And she's like, now we can just give him this fresh, new, beautiful young lady. And that's kind of what he should have, because his previous young, fresh lady got spoiled and then died. I have a lot of feelings about that whole argument. But Eleanor is sort of like, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, sure. It's very sad. Edward does not come to visit, however, and they're waiting and waiting for him. And they think he's going to be bringing Margaret's atlas in a package. He's promised to bring it, or they think he's going to bring it with him when he visits. But instead, he sends it in a package. And when it arrives, this is almost like they've all received a message from him saying, I'm actually not coming, because why would he send it if he was going to be visiting soon? So the women all start freaking out, especially the more emotional ones. Margaret is like, why isn't he coming? He said he would come. And Marianne has to kind of whisk her away. She's like, we're going to go out for a walk so that Eleanor can process her feelings. But Eleanor is taking it on the chin. She's like, we're not engaged. Even if he felt a preference for me, there are many obstacles to him marrying a woman with no title who can't afford sugar. So I understand. I'm not expecting him to be here. Meanwhile, out on their walk, it begins to rain. Everyone except Marianne seems to understand that it is always going to rain. They are in England. There's a lot of
Marianne is
rain.
in constant denial of the rain. It's a theme.
She's like, Margaret, let's go for a walk so you can stop talking about Edward and making Eleanor upset. And Margaret's like, it's going to rain. And Marianne says, it's not going to rain. And Margaret says, you always say that. And then it always does. And that comes back again. Marianne is always being like, it's not going to rain. And then it does. And then she is horribly injured. But in a romantic way. So it does rain. And Marianne loves it. She's like, this is so romantic. Like, have you ever seen such a felicitous view? There's some blue sky. Let us chase it. And she runs down a hill through the grass, slips, falls, and hurts her ankle. And this is why women shouldn't run or do athletics. Our frames are too fragile.
Yeah, that's what I took away from this.
Yeah.
Never run. Which is
Never
convenient for
run.
me because I don't like to run anyway.
Don't run.
In Austen
Don't go out
novels-
if it might rain. Just stay indoors. With
Dangers everywhere.
needlepoint. Yeah.
But you should talk about the weather. Talking
Yes.
about the weather is good. Don't experience it.
Having also just watched Persuasion, I'm like, if a woman runs or jumps, she will
Get
be
seriously
terribly
injured.
injured. Like, stay on solid ground. But then a dashing man on horseback gallops in, and he very sensually checks her ankle for brakes, and then
Greg
carries
Wise
her
is
home.
so hot in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's almost annoying that he doesn't get to have a romantic,
I
you know, a true
Except,
happy romantic arc.
except that the best fun fact is that he actually got together with Emma Thompson during the filming of this movie. She was going through a divorce that was not finalized. She was still technically married to Kenneth Branagh, but he had just had an affair with Helena Bonham Carter. And
Yep.
so he and Emma Thompson were living separately. And apparently, Greg Wise's witchy friend named like Helen or something told him that he was going to meet his future life partner on the set of Sense and Sensibility. And he showed up and he was like, well, I guess my soulmate must be Kate Winslet because she's the only single one who's around my age. But then they just had like nothing in common.
Because he was like, she's 19.
She's 19 and apparently he tried to take her to a music festival. It just like wasn't there. And so Kate was like, no, Emma's separated from her husband. Like, I see something there. They got together. They eventually got married. They have 2 children.
They're
And
still together.
They're still together. It's so beautiful. I'm
It's so
obsessed
beautiful.
with it.
Also, I love that like Kenneth Branagh cheated on her, which sucks so much. And she was like, I'm going to go and make this movie. And then like the hottest man in the world in this movie walks in and was like, you, ma'am.
I'm obsessed. It's
I
so
know.
good.
It's so good. Like the fact that she ended up marrying fucking Willoughby is so good.
It's perfect. Also, it makes me really watch all the scenes of where he's teasing Eleanor. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, ooh, are they flirting?
I love also that he listens to women. Like his friend told
like,
him he
"She's
was
a
going to meet his
witch."
soulmate there, and he was like, "Okay, so it's got to be someone here. Like, failure is not an option."
Yeah. He's like,
It's
there's
like
a
he's the
limited
Bachelor
number
of
of
Sense and
women
Sensibility.
here.
He's like, he walks in, he's like, "I know my soulmate is in this room. I just have to find her. Where
And
is
he
she?"
was right. He was right.
right.
Always believe women. Always believe witches. And Emma Thompson wins yet again. She rose from the ashes of her marriage
She
with
really-
a hottie.
I feel like Sense and Sensibility just gave her everything she deserved.
I know.
Yeah.
Have
An
an Oscar.
Oscar, a new
Have a
man.
hot husband.
Yeah, like please.
No, that's the thing. Like, and she and Kate Winslet are still close friends. Like, you just sense that every time people talk about this set, it's like just seems like a magical place where dreams come true.
Oh my God,
Like,
Emma
your-
Thompson
your
gave
hot
an
cocoa never
interview.
gets cold, and like
It
everything
sounds
smells
so
like flowers.
dreamy. I just watched this like lengthy interview that Emma Thompson was giving to GQ. It like just came out, where she goes through kind of all of her most iconic roles, and she's just like talking about the making of Sense and Sensibility as if it was the best experience of her life. She's talking about joking around with Hugh Grant and how, they're super close. She had like a long time deep friendship with Alan Rickman until he died. I mean, she met her partner. Like, this is a magical place. Whatever happened on this set was pure magic.
Yeah, Roger Ebert.
Yeah, Roger. How dare you?
How dare you?
So Willoughby swoops up Marianne and carries her home in the pouring rain, and she is immediately in love. I believe we have a clip.
He lifted me as if I weighed no more than a dried leaf.
Is he human?
Tell me if I hurt you.
She feels no pain, Mamma.
Did you see him? He expressed himself well, did he not?
With great decorum and honour.
And spirit and wit and feeling.
And economy. 10 words at most.
And he is to come tomorrow.
Marianne, you must change. You will catch a cold.
What care I for colds when there is such a man?
You will care very much when your nose swells up.
You are right. Help me, Eleanor.
Oh, I love these little moments where like Eleanor is allowed to be funny without taking away from the fact that she is very restrained and very considerate. And also you see that sisterly love that transcends their differences, that like they're so different and sometimes they're at odds, but there is this like a mutual attentiveness and care and respect that is not always present in Austen's relationships between sisters who are very different. Like they are kind of the yin and yang sisters who are still so like closely bonded together.
It's very sweet. And their connection with their mother and youngest sister as well. It's just like this little beautiful family unit of 4 women.
Yeah. They also learn from Sir John a little more information about Willoughby, that he's a fine writer and he has the smartest little bitch of a pointer and is set to inherit the Allenham estate nearby. And Marianne is like, but what if his passions, his interests? Like, does he care for poetry?
And he's like, what are you talking about? I know how he hunts.
Yeah, he's like, I told you about his bitch. What more do you want?
This man's got bitches on bitches on bitches. Like, you would not believe. But fortunately, the next day, Mr. Willoughby calls, and he has with him a bouquet of wildflowers picked from a nearby field, which Marianne much prefers to the hothouse flowers brought by Colonel Brandon. What man of poetic feeling would ever purchase flowers from a disgusting hothouse? Very quickly, they are quoting Shakespeare's sonnets to each other.
I found it interesting that this is a change that Emma Thompson made, that they bond over Shakespeare, not over like Byron.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because as I was watching it, I was like, Shakespeare doesn't quite seem like something that I feel like the women in Austen novels are often reading like the more current, like romantic fads, right? Like the poets who are very popular at the time, very like tempestuous emotions and like drama. And now Shakespeare is a poet that we think of as much more like, oh, the young literary women will be reading and quoting and making part of their identity. No one's doing that with like Byron as much anymore, or like Cowper.
I was like, I'm sure someone is, but it's a little more niche. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Shakespeare is like a
niche.
perfect shorthand. You're like, oh, I see what they're doing.
Right. She's like, what those poets did in Austen's time to explain Marianne's character, Shakespeare will do for a modern audience. And I think she was right about that. It allows them to use a very thematically resonant sonnet 116, which they're like quoting to each other. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters, it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. And he misremembers, he says storms instead of tempests, and she's like, tempests.
She's like, I believe it's
well, let me just
actually, yeah.
He's like, let me check my pocket sonnets.
My pocket Shakespeare.
When he pulled out the pocket sonnets,
He's what we'd call today a performative male.
Yeah. But it is a moment where like it does like, I don't know, it's a great writing moment because in that moment you're like, I know exactly who this man is.
Yeah.
And I can see why she likes him, but also I don't know that you should
I'm
trust
concerned.
him.
Yeah. Well, this is a timeless issue when, like, of course you fall in love with the handsome man who shares all of your interests and passions, but men like that can get a lot of chicks. So, do you really trust their character? Or should you maybe date a nice accountant instead? It's a little less flashy. No more guys in bands, okay? So he gives her his pocket edition of Shakespeare, and Marianne is just overcome with like her attraction during this meeting, and it just shines through. And afterward, Eleanor slightly chides her for making it so clear that she's like into Willoughby, and Marianne retorts that if she had shallower feelings, she could hide them as Eleanor does. And Eleanor, wounded, retreats to her room to fondle the monogrammed handkerchief that Edward once gave her.
All that emotion's just repressed under the surface for Eleanor.
Marianne's like, if I had as shallow emotions for this man I've known for 30 minutes as you have for the man you've been longing for months, perhaps I could hide them.
Imagine if you're like in love with someone and you don't have a photograph, you're not allowed to write them a letter. You have a monogrammed handkerchief to pour just all of your feelings into.
That is your talisman of love.
That's it. Like
I
think I would like forget what the object of my desire looked like. I'd be like, did I imagine them?
I definitely would forget. Like when I saw them again, it would be a surprise. I'd be like, oh, that's what you look like. I've just been looking at your fucking handkerchief for months. And that's why you have the great ceremony of like, if you're engaged, you get to get a little miniature painted of yourself and you can give it to
so you can remember what they look like when you're separated.
You can remember what they look like. I mean, you can't just like put them on your iPhone background back then, you know?
No, certainly not.
Which is why I have my family on my iPhone background, so I don't forget what they look
You're
like.
always like forgetting what your children look like.
And then I have to go to school pickup, so it's like I need to know what they look like.
You need a
Thank you
refresher.
to modern technology.
You show up at school pickup just with a monogrammed handkerchief, being like, "Oh no,
you're like,
which one's my child?"
Does any of them look like they might have once touched this handkerchief? And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we will finish our discussion of Sense and Sensibility.
And we are back, and we dive right back into Marianne's storybook romance. Storybook, very doomed romance as it's unfolding. And
But
she's
we
diving
know
in.
she loves a doomed romance. So like maybe this was always her fate. That it's the storybook romances are always the ones that end in death. So she sketches his profile at parties. She lets him fondle her neck and cut off a curl of her hair. She's driving through town with him at breakneck speed. I mean, I will be honest. I think in Austen's time, she would have been pretty much ruined by now. Like, he touches her neck once at a party, it's over.
Yeah, I think Ang Lee added a little bit more sensuality than is present in the text.
Well, there is that way where you can, and you don't always have to do this for a good adaptation, but you can just like dial up a little bit to make it clearer to the contemporary audience what it would have seemed like to people at the time.
I do think you kind of need that. Because
I
I need
feel
it to read as if the stakes are there.
like I think at the time, them just going on a carriage ride alone would have been like, whoa. But to a modern audience, that doesn't read the same way.
Yeah, it doesn't read quite as dramatic. And Eleanor is burying her heartbreak in household management and, telling her mother they can't afford beef. But she also is like, I have to sort of manage Marianne. Marianne is really exposing herself, and she starts to warn her sister that she needs to be a little bit more constrained because she's already opened herself up to impertinent remarks. She's hearing people gossip about her sister, and that's the problem. But Marianne is like, whatever, you don't understand love. I'm in love, so I don't want to hear it from you. But Colonel Brandon overhears, and he confides in Eleanor that he kind of agrees with Marianne. He's like, I think that her open display of emotions show that she is entirely unspoiled. And
creepy. Creepy
Eleanor,
read.
I know. Eleanor says that she needs to learn the ways of the world, and he's like, "Don't wish for that. I knew a girl like Marianne once who was forced into learning the ways of the world, and the result was only
He's like,
ruination."
she was passed from man to man until she died in a
Yeah.
poorhouse
I
once
just
she was
love
exposed to the
there's
world.
Yeah.
there's like no middle ground. It's like she either learns to be quiet and respectful or she will be passed from man to man and die in a poorhouse. Like there's no just like, hey,
Those are the
Marianne.
paths for
Yeah,
women.
like Marianne maybe just
Yeah.
needs to be like a tiny bit more proper. It's like, no,
Yeah.
these are the realities of the world.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, Eleanor clearly wants her sister to learn to behave more judiciously. And he's like, no, once she's learned how to behave more judiciously, it's already too late. Like, what we need is for her to be transferred to the safekeeping of her husband before she has ever encountered consequences or knowledge of any kind. And, like, again, this I think hits a little bit differently now than it did even a few years ago, because it has become very popular in right-wing spaces to argue that men should be basically scouting high schools, like high school parking lots for teenagers that they can marry before they've like found out about the real world and been ruined by too much knowledge of life. And, that's all just kind of a way of saying like before they've had sex with other men. But that's usually what knowledge of the world means when we're talking about young women. It's like, oh no, she has too much knowledge of the world. And Colonel Brandon is like, we just got to scoop her up before she ever learns about that stuff and keep her protected in her naive bubble forever.
And it is a credit to Alan Rickman that like his performance of this role sells it. Like you believe in his kind of inherent goodness as Colonel Brandon. Like there is like a quiet warmth to him. Because again, as like a modern viewer, you're just sort of like, why is this old man trying to date a teenager?
Well, and there is this sense, I think, that like there's like a hard-won nature to his caution, which is like, I cared for the well-being of some women. We now know there are, like later in the movie, we find out there are 2 women that he has learned this about, that he cared for them deeply. They were allowed to learn too much about the world and they ended up in dire straits because of it. And he did not throw them away. He still cared for them through that. So he's not like a cad. He is a caring person. He just wants the best for them under the circumstances.
Yeah, I think
But-
there's a generous read of like he has known women who had this like these big emotions and this sort of lack of care for the propriety over happiness and found that really beautiful, and he has only seen that end in tragedy. And he likes to believe that maybe there's a way for Marianne for it not to end in tragedy and her to continue being that person in this world. I think if he were not like 49, it'd be easier to read that. It's so hard because you're like,
I know.
He's just so much older. You just wish he was just a little.
I know, but I
younger
also
at the
love
time.
Alan
Yeah.
Rickman.
Me too. I love
I
him.
like,
I'm
I
obsessed
love
with
him.
and
I love
he's-
his performance. I'm like, I don't know
It's
that I would change
beautiful.
it. You just can't think about it too hard.
No, yeah, you have to just dissociate on that, which is what I do because I do love Alan Rickman. He does such a beautiful job in this role. It's just like that's just hovering
Yeah.
there a little bit.
Well, and I think a lot of the Jane Austen novels are really about how women learn to navigate a world where the consequences are this severe
Yes.
for being too open, for being too trusting, for giving their heart to the wrong man, for stepping outside of those boundaries of behavior. And how can you learn that kind of judgment when you are so confined? And actually, Marianne is a very generous version of that. What we see with, for example, Lydia in Pride and Prejudice is that she is really framed as like a selfish moron, kind of, who
Yeah,
like
just
exposes her family
fundamentally
by ruining herself.
Yeah, fundamentally silly, never learns anything, is almost like incapable of learning lessons,
Yeah.
even when she gets to the point of like almost ruination.
But it's also
And Marianne is different.
Marianne is different, but it's also fascinating because it is in both Pride and Prejudice and this, it's also so affected by economics, by the fact that like these women, they don't have money to offer. They have no way of like getting any more money except through marriage. And so the only thing that they have is like their beauty and their wit and their reputation.
Right. And once that is done, they are done. And it also impacts the entire family. Whereas in Emma, for example, you see Emma truly consider the prospect of being able to be like an elegant spinster because she's already rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's absolutely true. And part of what we also see these women often negotiating, and they talk about it more explicitly in Pride and Prejudice, but like the question of like, how do you win a man? How do you get the proposal that you need to have that security if you're never showing any preference for him? But if you do show the preference, then you open yourself up to gossip and like people, you can cross that line. Oh, she's showing too much of a preference, like she's being inappropriate. And so we see that like Marianne and Eleanor are also both trying to navigate those two, like Scylla and Charybdis, almost like if I'm too improper, then I'll be ruined. If I'm too proper, then maybe no one will even know that I want them to propose to me.
Yeah.
You know? Fortunately, Edward gets it. He's like, this woman has never said anything indicating that she's into me, but I know she does deep down. So Colonel Brandon has invited them all to his estate for a picnic. But as they're setting out, he receives an urgent message and immediately rides off to London. They're starting to leave for London. So instead, the Dashwoods picnic with Mr. Willoughby outside Barton Cottage, where he does like a full-on comedy routine, just like merrily mocking Colonel Brandon as dull, Mrs. Jennings, just like everyone they were going to hang out with. He's like, I'm going to make sport of them. I believe we have a clip.
No, but I love this performance by Greg Wise. He's just
it's so good.
Hamming it up.
I would fall in love with him.
Mr. Impudence! Yeah. I know you and your wicked ways. Oh. Come, Miss Dashwood, reveal your bell, reveal him, I say. Let's have no secrets between friends. Let me winkle them out of you. Now, I do declare, Miss Marianne, if I do not have you married to the Colonel by tea time, I shall swallow my own bonnet. As if you could marry such a character.
Why should you dislike him?
Because he has threatened me with rain when I wanted it fine. He has found fault with the balance of my high flyer, and I cannot persuade him to buy my brown mare. If it will be of any satisfaction to you, however, to be told that I believe his character to be in all other respects irreproachable, then I'm ready to confess it. And in return for such an acknowledgement that must give me some pain, you cannot deny me the privilege of disliking him as much as I adore this cottage.
This cottage.
As much as I adore this cottage.
I mean, I truly would definitely fall in love with Willoughby in this scene. You're just, the appeal is off the charts.
Especially in an era with no television, no movies.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine what a routine like that would do to you?
I know.
I'm like, you don't need television. You have a comedian in your midst. Yeah. But like in an Austen novel, someone who is funny at the expense of others is always suspect, right? Like he's mocking people who are, while annoying and dull, good people. They're generous. Like, do they deserve his barbs? And so that's always one of the ways that like a bad dude sneaks in, is he's so charming and funny, but he does so. And sometimes it's a lady. Sometimes
I was gonna
say
Emma.
Yeah. Sometimes it's at the expense of people who don't deserve to be made a mockery of. But it's hard not to feel like he would be a fun hang. And of course, choosing the cottage as his conclusion to that statement is still telling in a sense, because in Austen, the property is the person. And if he's in love with that cottage and he never wants it to change, you know for damn sure he's in love with the person who lives in that cottage.
I just love that it was the best cover he could come up with. Like
He's like,
oh no,
around and
you
he's
can't
like,
say you.
there's
He's like,
a
what can I
house.
say? I see her whole family. I can't say them. We got a house, man.
It's such an interesting moment too, because like, is everything he's doing performative? I feel like there is a reading where he is sort of intentionally kind of love bombing Marianne in modern parlance. Or is he just like his feelings are bursting out of him here and he realizes too late that like he's said too much?
I
and
think
that's genuine.
I read it as the latter.
I do too.
Interesting.
Because I think the movie implies that he genuinely like he and Marianne's relationship was genuine.
I agree.
Yeah.
That,
and he's just
because
not
there's that
very
moment at
steady.
the very end. Well, he just like that he chooses economics.
Yeah.
That's the one where I was like,
But-
this is the materialists. Just like 1800s materialists, because he chooses money over love.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this scene to me just like it reads as so like over the top, like he is making a show for everyone. And then it seems funny that he has forgotten that they're there in a sense, or he said something he doesn't want them to hear. But I do think it's meant more to indicate that he has such poor self-control and judgment that he has let himself. Yeah.
And we learn that is ultimately his downfall, right? Like
Indeed.
his trail
Yes.
of poor decision making leaves him in a position where he is, as a man, forced to choose money over love, which is not something that I think he thought he would ever have to do.
Yes. So at the end of this picnic, he asks Marianne to speak to him alone the next day, and she agrees to stay behind from church. But when the others return, Marianne is in tears, and Mr. Willoughby tells them that Lady Allen is sending him to London.
London?
Yep, he's going to London now, too. What's going on in London? Kind of seems like
Boys Club.
a party. Who are the boys hanging out with in London? It's Colonel Brandon's ward. He doesn't know when he'll be able to return. And he doesn't seem to know how to explain himself when they ask questions, and he ends up running out, distraught. It's a strange scene. The very strong implication at the picnic was that he was going to propose, and instead he is suddenly like, I have to go. There's nothing I can do.
I feel like he says something like, I'm not going to torture myself with this anymore.
Yes.
Like when he leaves, it's so like that's the moment where I'm like,
Yeah.
he did love Marianne.
Yeah. But again, that line does two things, right? He really loves Marianne and this is painful. He wanted to be proposing. And also he's like he's governed by his own feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well,
He's like, I'm going to do what my
protecting
feelings
myself.
Yeah, he's
dictate
like,
right now.
could I stay here and make this more comfortable for them? For sure, but I'm not going to.
And he's like, could I offer a genuine explanation of what I'm doing? Yes. Will I?
Right.
No,
No.
because that's uncomfortable
I'm
for
just
me.
going to leave now because I'm very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So all the women are heartbroken and sobbing. Eleanor is suspicious. She thinks this is a very strange way to leave, and no one else wants to hear it. So there's an amazing scene where she's on the landing with her tea, and all three doors around her have a sobbing Dashwood woman or girl behind it.
Margaret just can't be left out, so she decides to cry too.
Margaret just wants like anything entertaining in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, it must be very strange to be a 13-year-old girl whose only real, like, social life is what you can hear of your older sisters talking about their, like, boyfriends.
Yeah, or like,
I want to be
she's like-
included.
yeah, or if
That's why
their
she's
boyfriend,
like,
you can get their
I
boyfriends
like
to
the
come over.
Jennings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there is one moment where Margaret is like, at least the Jennings talk about real things.
Yeah. Like dogs, okay? Dogs are real.
She's like desperate for gossip, and I get it as a person
Yeah.
who's also desperate for gossip.
Yeah. She is also the person who reveals to Mrs. Jennings that Eleanor did have like a love interest back at Norland, and his name started with
an
F. Which then leads Mrs. Jennings to tease Eleanor about Mr. F for a very long time.
I'm also fascinated. If someone was like, oh, you have a crush on someone, what does his name start with? Would you go last name letter?
I thought the same thing. Well, I mean, another
so
sign of the
funny.
times, right? Who even
Yeah, and you're
remembers
like,
what?
No, it's all about his
Who
family
even
name.
remembers
Yeah.
what Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Darcy's first name even starts with? Like, you know,
It's
like,
an F.
It is an F.
It is an F.
ironically enough. But we would say his name starts with D.
D for
Mr.
Darcy.
D.
Yeah. But it's funny because they call him Edward so much in the movie that I feel like
They
when I was
do.
watching that scene, I was like, F? Wait a minute.
You're like, who's that?
Who's she talking about?
Fedward?
Margaret is sadly mistaken. No, it's true. I think in the book that they're a little bit more formal and it's less out of place.
Yeah.
So around this time, we meet Lucy Steele. She comes to visit the Middleton estate along with Mrs. Jennings' silly daughter, played by Imelda Staunton, and her very rude husband, who loathes her.
Obsessed
Mr. Palmer.
with Mr. Palmer. Hugh Laurie is so good.
He has like 15
Role
lines in this
made for
movie,
him.
and everyone
High
is
impact.
gold. Yeah.
Yeah. Just truly incredible stuff. And Imelda Staunton is incredible. And it's so funny how seeing her younger, like I think she's so ingrained in my mind as this like sweet voice that is used in kind of a poisonous way. And in this role, she's just kind of silly and flighty. And it's such a like different use of her powers as an actor. She's great.
Yeah. I mean, she's incredible. You can imagine that if you were married to her, it would be incredibly grating.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, shut the fuck up. But he can't say shut the fuck
whenever
up.
Whenever she speaks, he basically is like, shut the fuck up. And then she's like, oh, Mr. Palmer. And she laughs and laughs and laughs. She's like, he's kidding, of course. He adores me.
It makes, but like, it totally tracks to me. I love it so much because you feel like when he first met her, he was like charmed by how bubbly she was. And then, you know, now they're some
Married
years
for
in.
decades.
Yeah. And, you know, you go off to your estate and it's just you and your servants.
I was going to say, he's trapped with her. He's trapped with her and no one else.
Yeah. Well, and this was at the time. I mean, Jane Austen is fascinated with these kinds of couples, and I'm sure they were all around because you would have this little courtship, and then you're tied together for the rest of your life. And like, it's the Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. Also, it's the intelligent man who marries an idiot, and then for the rest of his life is like, how do I live with this absolute moron who won't shut up?
You danced together 4 times. And like got married.
And like, obviously there are many intelligent women in the books as in life, but women are much more likely to be less well educated, you know, so there are a lot of educated men who are married to women who they think are super dumb.
Well, and it's
just
also
like,
like,
how do I deal?
Like, I feel like you see in Pride and Prejudice as well, you have the thing where like the mom is kind of uneducated and silly, so some of her daughters end up that way, and she loves that about them. And so, like, I feel like it's like a perpetuating thing as well, where it's like silly, uneducated moms then have silly, uneducated daughters. And eventually, if you're an educated, witty woman, you're probably in society being like, this is cool.
Luckily for Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, they have a son, so he will be educated.
He'll be educated.
Yeah. They have a baby. I was
Little
thrown by the
Thomas.
baby.
Yeah.
So after dinner at the Middleton house, Lucy asks Eleanor to talk, and she reveals that she and Edward have been secretly engaged for 5 years. She wipes her nose with her own monogrammed ECF handkerchief as she opens up about the struggle of being separated for so long. Eleanor is stricken. She's like, I can't believe another woman has an ECF handkerchief, and I've been clutching mine so tenderly in my hands.
She's finally understanding the Plymouth and Mr. Pratt connection.
Yes, because Lucy says that he was a student of her uncle, Mr. Pratt. And she also makes a point to say that he looks on Eleanor as quite a sister.
Oh, that's just dagger.
Dagger.
And it's quite evident especially as their relationship continues, that Lucy knows that Eleanor is something of a romantic competitor, and she is very eager to warn Eleanor off, and that is kind of the true reason she confided in her.
Enemies closer situation. She's like, I am taking you into my confidence. I am making you my friend, my secret keeper, in order to like warn you off from my man. And then throw in little comments like, I've never had a moment's worry. He's never spoken about another woman.
Except
for you. You're so sisterly to him. Yeah. He's always talking about how he feels like you're blood related, and that's the only way he sees you. So Mrs. Jennings ends up inviting Eleanor and Marianne to London for the season. So finally, some travel, and Lucy Steele and the Palmers are coming as well. So they're going to have like a big party together in London. But when they arrive in London, eager to be called upon by their various suitors who were called away to London, none of them really call except for Colonel Brandon. And Colonel Brandon only really shows up in order to get some insight from Eleanor. He's like, give it to me straight. Is she engaged to Willoughby? And Eleanor very gently is like, not that I know of, but I do believe that they are mutually very attached. And he's like, understood. Like, I hope that he will endeavor to deserve her. At this point, it seems pretty likely that he knows that Willoughby impregnated his ward and left her. And I'm like, relevant information that you might want this family to have, but he is just simply too full of integrity to tell them what they need to know. Marianne sends letters to Willoughby at all hours. She wants him to call, obviously, but he doesn't call, and he never even responds to her letters.
The middle of the night letter is you're like, okay, this is too much now. She like wakes up a servant to like come get a letter in the middle of the night.
Yes. You see Foot show up at the door and his wig is like askew. It's so good. And he looks so mad.
He's like, so mad.
He's like, I fucking had to put on my wig to send out another one of your goddamn letters. Like, this man isn't coming.
Again, it is just like that slight turning of the dial where like it doesn't seem strange for her to send him a letter, although at the time it would have been quite improper. But to send him frantic letters in the middle of the night, you are getting into like she's like sending him texts, except she has to wake someone up to send text to someone who won't even write back.
It is the equivalent of just texting like a whole block and never receiving a response, and then being like, gotta do it again the next day.
Or like the next day being like, I'm just gonna text his roommate and make sure that something didn't happen with his phone.
Is he alive? Is he okay? Did his phone die?
So they do have some like events to attend in town to keep them distracted. So the Dashwoods, Sir John, Mrs. Jennings, the Palmers, Miss Steele are attending a ball, and they have been informed that Mr. Ferrars will be there, and they're very excited to finally see Edward, especially Miss Steele and Eleanor. But it is, in fact, the younger brother, Robert, who is there, and he makes a cutting remark about how his brother has no special acquaintance in attendance who would make his presence at this event worthwhile. I'm like, check yourself. He has 2. There are a lot of women crying in the, crying by the refreshments table because he's not here tonight. While dancing, Eleanor encounters Mr. Willoughby, whom they had thought must not be in town yet because he's not even responding to the letters.
Oh, this is one of the most devastating moments of the whole movie. Like, I feel it like in my bones, this moment. Marianne, of course, sees him finally across the ballroom and like cries out his name. We have a clip of a bit of this exchange.
Oh. Good God, Willoughby! Will you not shake hands with me?
How do you do, Miss Marianne?
Willoughby, what is the matter? Why have you not come to see me? Were you not in London? Have you not received my letters?
Yes, I had the pleasure of receiving an information you were so good as to send me.
For heaven's sake, Willoughby. Tell me what is wrong.
Thank you, I'm most obliged. If you will excuse me, I must rejoin my party.
Cold as fucking ice.
The information she was so good as to send. The information being, please, Willoughby, I love you. I'm in town. Please come see me. Oh, yes, she's been so good as to send me this information.
And he's like not a smile on his face. Like Greg Wise's face is just stony here. And Marianne and Eleanor follow him through the ballroom, or Marianne follows him and Eleanor follows Marianne. And they see him rejoining his party, which includes some very snooty-looking women who we just barely hear saying, like, do you know those people? He refers to them as acquaintances from the country. And then there's a very quiet line that says, in their country fashions, I see.
And then she turns around. That actress turns around and gives the most the most condescending. I was like, good job, you. You have two quiet lines, but you deliver. You deliver a look.
That look is chilling.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's the one woman who's clearly we're meant to understand is his fiance or fiance to be, who's wearing the most like glittering, elegant gown and jewels everywhere. And she's gorgeous, and that look that she gives Marianne is devastating.
Disgust.
You can see how it would just make you feel like your pretty dress that you thought you looked so beautiful in suddenly feels like dowdy and disgusting, and you feel small and pathetic.
Oh,
and she does have a very severe face. Like they cast that.
They made sure she
really
didn't look fun.
Yeah.
Well, she's like
she
a
looks
Cressida from
Yeah.
Bridgerton style beauty.
Yes, with like the very pointed features, and she gloved hands, which she just gently places on his shoulder. Like you just get so much information from this very quick exchange. And Marianne, of course, then faints.
Naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, what else is a woman to do in such a moment? So meanwhile, Robert Ferrars and Lucy Steele seem to be quite swept up in dancing together. And when the rest of the party leaves to take their unconscious friend and sister home, they stay together
To gossip and like talk shit.
And he is gonna bring her home. I mean, at this point, it should be pretty clear that something is a brewing between the younger Mr. Ferrars and Lucy.
But they do a really good
But
job
everyone else is distracted.
of casting him as being just like also kind of the worst.
You're like gross.
Yeah,
you're
like
immediately put off.
Yeah, you're like not that guy. Okay. And then, but it immediately like makes you go like, oh, if she's hitting it off with like Fanny and Robert, how on earth did her and Edward?
Right.
Like I feel like it makes you as the viewer be like, this is not the woman
Doomed.
for. Yeah, this is doomed.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Right.
Like.
She's like immediate friends with Fanny,
Yes.
and that is the first side. And then she hits it off with Robert, who is clearly a dick, and that's the second side. The signs are not pointing in a good direction.
Signs are not pointing in a good direction.
The next morning, Marianne finally receives a letter from Willoughby, coldly informing her that his affections have long been engaged elsewhere. He sends her back her letters and her lock of hair. And at this point, Marianne confesses to Eleanor that she and Willoughby were never engaged, even though she was writing to him. And Marianne tries to defend him by saying that they weren't engaged. He never declared himself. And Eleanor is like, no, he made us all believe that he loved you. He broke faith with all of us. And Marianne sobs and says, he loved me as I loved him. Then Mrs. Jennings bursts in, does not read the room whatsoever.
Well, she never does.
No. She's got good gossip, and it is going to be shared.
She's got good gossip and the offer of olives.
She's like, listen, girl, I'm on your side. I've got a bunch more information that's going to make you feel like complete shit. You're sobbing? Perfect. Great place to start. She's like, he is marrying an heiress at the end of the month, someone named Miss Gray. She has 50,000 pounds. Would you like any olives? Would that help?
It's so funny. Her performance is so funny.
It's so good.
Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Dashwood are gossiping about this with Robert, and Fanny has the utter nerve to say that Marianne is virtually penniless, so she'll certainly end up a spinster. And John agrees that she couldn't have expected him to see it through. You know, she doesn't have any money.
Why
I'm sorry.
is that?
I thought they had so much money they were going to be giving you money. Now they're not. Now they don't have enough money to get married.
These people are so odious.
It's
just at every turn.
I just love they're like, we made them poor. How dare they be poor?
Yeah. I know. It's probably because they're bad people who deserve to be spinsters.
Where are their dowries supposed to come from? Why didn't they plan for this? But John feels a little bit bad. Like he's the kind of husband that another Austen type of like, he kind of rises and falls to the level of his spouse. Like, he kind of wants to do the right thing, but when Fanny says no, he's like, no, you're right. If Fanny had been a good person, maybe he would have settled a nice sum on all of them and he would have felt great about it. So his first instinct is, well, I do feel a little bit bad. Let's invite them to stay with us. And Fanny's like, no, I've already invited Miss Steele and we can't take all of them at once. So we'll just have Miss Steele. She's much
she says,
more.
We'll have your sisters another year.
And it's like, you're going to have them for what? They're going to meet men that they can't marry because they don't have a dowry because you won't give them any money. Oh, she's such a monster. Colonel Brandon comes by the house and cautiously does share some information with Mr. Willoughby with Eleanor. He's like, now that Marianne is no longer at risk of marrying this complete bottom-feeding cad, maybe it will help you feel better if you now learn this information that you can't use in any way, which is that it turns out Willoughby impregnated and abandoned my ward, and his ward is the daughter of his former love, Eliza. When he found her dying, she had a child. He took on her daughter and has raised her. He allowed her a lot of freedom, maybe too much. And 8 months ago, she disappeared. On the day of the Delaford picnic, he got word that she had been found. It turned out that she had been, again, impregnated and abandoned by Mr. Willoughby himself. Lady Allen discovered this and disinherited him. This is why he fled to London on that next morning and ended up throwing his cap at Miss Gray and her 50,000 pounds. He had a lot of debts to settle. He needed that money. He was no longer going to inherit. And Brandon says that otherwise he would have proposed to Marianne that morning at Barton Cottage. I will say, for all of Roger Ebert's complaints, there is a reason that they all went to London.
Yes, they all left for a reason.
It's all very
connected.
pointedly. It all really pays off. Also, it pays off when they all get to go to London.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the coming and going
also,
to London.
That's what people did in like,
Right,
it was
there
like
was the
the
season.
season where everyone went to London.
Okay,
But what else did they
Roger.
have to do back then? They went to London. They went back to the country. They went to London again.
Sometimes they went to Bath, but not in this book.
And then
Sometimes
they
they broke their
consumption
journey.
and they died. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
Sometimes they broke their journey at a distant relative's manor, okay? Like, but more or less, that's it. So that night, Eleanor relays all of this to Marianne. And she says, at least you may be certain that he loved you. And Marianne says, but not enough. And I'm like, I want to linger a little more on the part where he's a really, really terrible person.
Yeah.
Like, he got this 15-year-old pregnant.
Like,
and
if
then
you
abandoned
found
her.
out that he was willing to marry you with no money, but he had no money because he got some poor girl pregnant and abandoned her, would you want to do that? I want to dig in on that a little
She
bit.
seems to have no qualms about that. to be honest. She's like, it's not even
she's like, that's not really my business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not my circus, not my monkey.
He's like, we don't get into past relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you wanted to rule out every man who had done something like this in that era, you basically couldn't marry anyone at all.
Or at least not
okay?
anyone hot.
Yeah, that's the thing. Which is
Yeah,
why
they
she
ha-
has to marry someone who isn't hot.
Yeah. They had to be plain enough to not have many opportunities.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. Like Robert Ferrars, for example. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm sure you're a very nice man. Also, even Eleanor is like, this horrible person loved you. Isn't that nice? I'm like, no. It was all a lie because he's a truly shitty person. The next morning, Miss Steele returns gushing about Mrs. Ferrars, and we've all heard terrible things about Mrs. Ferrars, but she's like, no, she's actually so wonderful, and was like, I've heard that so many terrible things about her, but she couldn't have been more like amiable. But she still hasn't seen Edward. At that very moment, a maid announces that a guest is there to see Eleanor. Edward Ferrars.
Awkward.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so
Why
good.
is he visiting Eleanor?
You just see like panic all of their eyes.
Yeah, and Lucy clearly, like, whatever spidey sense she already had that she should be protective or that she should warn Eleanor off, that is amped up to the max now. She's shooting daggers with her eyes at Eleanor this whole scene. Clearly, this is a huge threat. He is like immediately calling on Eleanor the minute that he has an opportunity, and he hasn't even come to see her. So he walks in, and they're both just there. And he, like, clearly had no reason to expect that they would ever be in the same place at this point.
No, it's so
He's
good
now panicking.
because he walks in and he just sees Eleanor and he's like, oh, hey. And then she's like, and you know Lucy? And he's like,
Yeah, she's
oh,
like, Lucy, you know her.
oh, wow, okay, you're both here. Cool.
Oh, nice.
Like,
Actually, this is perfect. This is great.
yeah,
It's
this
like just
is
what I wanted. My
so
two
cool
ladies
for me.
in a room together.
So you guys are talking and hanging out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. What have you talked about so far?
Yeah.
Catch me up. Catch me up.
How you get? You're close, super close, little close. What's happening?
But he clearly panics. He has like no plan for Lucy is also there. So he like almost immediately gets back up and is like, I must go. And he ends up getting pushed into accompanying Miss Steele back to his sister's house. So they do have this alone time together after such a long hiatus. And back at Fanny's, Fanny, we see, has made Lucy kind of her confidant. Like she's like something in her calls to Fanny. Like they're the same kind of person. There's an affinity. She's like, you're so wonderful. You will marry far better than either of the Dashwood girls. And Lucy's like, but I have no dowry. And she's like, no, to the discerning mind, to the discerning person, like you have qualities that make a dowry like unnecessary, that people will understand because you have so many virtues. And Lucy is like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're saying that because I'm engaged to your brother.
And this is an incredible performance by Harriet Walter, who just like screeches and like throws Lucy.
She like starts trying to like grab her almost by like the ear or the hair. It's
By the nose.
By the nose. It's like it's so instantaneously like horrifying and violent.
She like takes her by the nose and throws her out into the street. It's so violent. And I mean, it's a very funny scene, but the consequences are going to be dire for poor Edward because his mother is like, if you're going to marry this little social climber, I'm going to disinherit you. But he refuses to break his word and leave Lucy. So he is irrevocably disinherited and the fortune is going to go to Robert. And they keep saying like irrevocably settled on him. And I'm like, why would you just use the power of disinheritance to great effect? Now you're going to give it to someone else and be like, I can't change my mind about this.
I know.
What if he tries to marry a little social climber?
I know. But it kind of
Bad decision.
Bad decision. I don't know. I get the brief impression that like Robert was always the favorite and the mom was kind of like
Yeah.
looking for an excuse.
A reason. Yeah.
A
like the minute-
reason.
like you like Edward is already the black sheep, so
Because
you know,
he's
she's
nice
eager to punish him.
and kind.
Yeah.
yeah, he's a good person. He's a good
Yeah,
person.
he's a good
They don't-
person.
They don't do good people
He's
in the
not
Ferris family.
grating on your nerves or your heart. And they were
He
like,
likes the
"Ugh."
smell of books.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the way that he and Fanny handle the engagement is such a so telling as to the type of character that they each have, where Fanny, when it costs her nothing, is really happy to be like, I'm so generous. I don't even care that much about money or status. Like I see your inner beauty, your inner values, like that's what matters. But when it's going to affect her in any sort of tangible way, she like immediately becomes like violently status conscious. Whereas Edward doesn't even like Lucy anymore. And he's like, I have to stick by my principles here. I have to stick by my word. So Mrs. Jennings hears that he has been disinherited. She runs back to the house to tell Marianne and Eleanor about his 5-year engagement to Lucy Steele and his disinheritance. And in that moment, Marianne realizes that Eleanor has known this information the whole time. And she presses her on this. She's like, Edward can't marry Lucy. He loves you. And at first, Eleanor is being very prudent and very principled. She's like, well, would you want him to treat Lucy even worse than Willoughby treated you? And Marianne is like, no, but I also don't want him to marry where he does not love. And she turns to Eleanor and says, Eleanor, where is your heart? I think we actually have a clip of this part of the conversation.
Edward will marry Lucy. And you and I will go home.
Always resignation and acceptance. Always prudence and honor and duty.
Eleanor, where is your heart?
What do you know of my heart? What do you know of anything but your own suffering? For weeks, Marianne, I've had this pressing on me, without being at liberty to speak of it to a single creature. It was forced on me by the very person whose prior claims ruined all my hopes. I have endured her exaltation again and again, whilst knowing myself to be divided from Edward forever. Believe me, Marianne, had I not been bound to silence, I could have produced proof enough of a broken heart, even for you.
Emma Thompson's performance in this moment is so good. The emotion finally starts to bubble up. It explodes a little bit, but she's still trying to be so restrained. And she just nails it.
Yeah. Oh, she's so perfect in this role. And, you know, this is the moment where that kind of clash between their two approaches to heartbreak kind of most directly comes into the forefront. And you see Eleanor's like frustration with how Marianne is sort of being selfish by not restraining herself at all, that she is like imposing her feelings onto everyone else, but also she is not leaving room to consider other people's feelings.
But this is
but
also
at
a
the same
breakthrough for
time-
Marianne. She like sees her sister and her feelings clearly for
Yeah.
the first time.
And also, like, we do see that, like, she doesn't have much space to think of Eleanor, also in part because Eleanor doesn't share very much with her. And it's one thing, of course, to be, like, proper in public, but she hasn't really confided in her sister either. And so how is Marianne going to really understand her heart if Eleanor won't speak about her heart to her? And so I think it's also like a little bit of a breakthrough for Eleanor in that
Yeah.
sense. But they do come back together, they embrace. And then Colonel Brandon swoops in as the hero again for Edward this time. He has decided to offer Edward a parish, a living on his estate, so that he can marry Lucy Steele at once. And he insists that Eleanor make the offer on his behalf so that it will come from a friend.
Eleanor is like, me? No, maybe
Yeah,
you.
she's
And
like,
he's
what
like, no,
about
certainly it'll
literally
be you.
anyone else? And he's like, no, I think you're the best choice. And she's like,
Yeah.
cool.
Great.
She's like, first I'm going to have to sit through the part of the conversation where he's sort of like awkwardly like, sorry that I didn't propose to you. But she ultimately does. And she tells Edward that she thinks it's more important than anything else that he honor his promises. And she wishes him and Lucy all possible happiness. And he's like, you did this. Thank you. You're the best friend I've ever had. And she's like, no, I didn't do anything, but I do wish you the best. So the Palmers take Eleanor and Marianne back to their estate. And the plan is for Colonel Brandon to later escort them back to Barton. But that opportunity does not arrive because things take a bit of a turn. Marianne goes out for a walk. It's about to rain. She's like, it's not going to rain. She always says that, and then it always does. And she goes far enough that she can see Willoughby's estate, which is visible from the Palmers' estate. There's like a bit of an overlook on the hill. And she's like quoting Sonnet 116 in the rain and weeping, "Oh, Willoughby." And obviously this is like when you are in Regency era England, and you're a woman, like you're taking your very life into your hands by leaving the house at any given time because it might rain and then you will catch ill and die.
Yeah.
So Colonel Brandon eventually finds her soaked to the bone, freezing. He has to carry her back to the house. That's also always what happens to me when I go out for a walk when it's raining. I'm like,
Someone's
who will
just
carry me home? I can't.
It is an incredible callback, though, to Marianne being carried back by Willoughby.
Yes, like she needed this in order to be able to see Colonel Brandon as a real romantic prospect. He needs to like carry her bridal style through the rain.
Yeah.
But this time she catches a cold, which turns into a raging fever. And though her nose does not swell up, it is not very convenient for her courtship with Colonel Brandon. That has to wait. Things take a turn for the worse. Eleanor spends a horrible night by Marianne's bedside after the doctor tells her that she should prepare herself because things are not going well. And she's begging Marianne, who is unconscious, don't leave me alone.
Oh, another just incredible Emma Thompson moment. Also, I believe this movie is how I learned about the practice of bloodletting.
I know, I was
That
gonna
must have
say.
been startling.
Like when I was in elementary school and I was like, why is her arm cut open?
Because
and
it
there's
does.
just blood pooling in a
Yeah,
bowl.
because it feels like you're like, oh, I have a sick person. What's the way to make them stronger? Just drain some of their blood.
Drain their life force.
Yeah.
You
It'll
don't
fix
understand. They're
everything.
actually all swelled up with blood is what's
Yeah, you
happening.
gotta get-
And they would feel fine if you just
get some of the blood out. It's crazy that anyone lived.
Yeah.
Like
really
you get
is.
sick and they're like, let's cut you open. Get some of that blood out of there.
Yeah, that's why the only way to heal her is just Eleanor being like, please.
It's like
please try.
Yeah, it's a hot compress
Yeah.
and a good sister is the only hope you've got.
But when she wakes the next morning, Marianne's fever has broken, and Colonel Brandon, who has ridden off to fetch their mother because he wants to help, he arrives with Mrs. Dashwood, and they are all reunited more happily this time. And after this brush with death, Marianne is warming to Brandon. She thanks him without even being prompted, instead of turning away from him with a revulsion in her look and a curled lip. And she begins to look forward to him coming to read to her. Their relationship is starting to blossom. She's like enjoying him reading poetry instead of being like, you're doing it wrong. He even sends her a small piano once they've gotten back to Barton Cottage with sheet music. And in an early scene, one of the ways she rejects him is that Mrs. Jennings is like, you two should play a duet. And she's like, I don't know any duets, even though she's a very accomplished pianist. And this time he sends sheet music and is like, I hope you'll have learned this by the time I come to visit. And she immediately starts practicing it. So she's come to see him as like a kindred artistic spirit, like someone that she can kind of share those interests with. I think that's such an important part of this adaptation because one of the worst parts of Sense and Sensibility is that at the end, it's sort of like, well, she found the guy that she shared all these interests and passions with, but unfortunately, he had bad character. And so now she has to marry this old guy who likes her and they have nothing in common. And she's fine with that, totally.
Yeah, in the movie, you get a sense that he's actually making efforts to like cultivate his interest aside, like with her, and they are finding these points of connection. Like they are also kindred spirits. He just has like a quieter way of expressing those. Unlike Edward, he knows how to read a sonnet with feeling.
Right. Like she's learning to appreciate that like that kind of artistic sensibility can come in a less ostentatious package. So Eleanor and the convalescing Marianne, before they go home to Barton, they go for a walk and look out at Willoughby's estate. Not in the rain this time. They let Eleanor check the weather, I guess.
Yeah.
And Eleanor tells her that Willoughby will always regret her. She's like, poor Willoughby. He'll always regret you. And Marianne points out that he may not have been content with her. He would have had a wife he loved, but no money. And she says something like he may have soon learned to rank the concerns of his pocketbook above those of love. And she adds that if his regrets are half as painful as hers, he will have suffered enough. And Eleanor asks if she compares her conduct with his, and Marianne says, no, I compare it to what it ought to have been. I compare it with yours. And that is Marianne's redemption, right? Like she has all of that impulsiveness and overly romanticized vision of the world, but she can learn and she can respect good character. She can come to aspire to that herself. And in this moment to say like, I should have behaved the way that you did shows that she is like intelligent and has like a moral center as well as this like sort of frivolity and romance.
And there's also something satisfying about seeing her articulate the ways in which Willoughby long-term could have been a terrible partner to her. Like she can see clearly, she can anticipate the ways in which like his selfish character would have impacted her negatively, even if he had decided to, you know, embrace someone who didn't have a large dowry.
Well, it feels like she's like growing up a little bit. And finding the middle ground of like, I can still like art, but, you know, be more proper in this society that really values that in women.
Right. Exactly. I cannot, you know, put myself in a very risky position. And it's a lesson that it's similar to what we see like Elizabeth Bennet learn with Wickham, which is, yeah, like just because I really enjoy this person's company doesn't mean that they would have been a good partner for me. They get to learn that without being completely ruined first. At home, we see that she really is reformed. She's wearing an apron and she's working at the kitchen table with the other women instead of like languishing over the piano. And their manservant comes in and tells them that he saw Lucy Steele or Mrs. Ferrars with her husband, and they are married now. And Eleanor is so overcome to hear this that she quietly walks out of the room. One day, they see a man riding up, and at first they think it must be Colonel Brandon, but it is Edward Ferrars. What is he doing here? He comes in for an incredibly awkward call. All of the women are standing in tense silence. Eleanor won't even look at him. And finally, Marianne and Mrs. Dashwood ask after Mrs. Ferrars. And he's like, oh, she's very well. And Mrs. Dashwood is like, is she at the parish now? And he's like, no, I don't think my mother is at the parish. She's in London. And Mrs. Dashwood says, no, Mrs. Edward Ferrars. And he is confused. He says, you haven't been told? You must mean Mrs. I'm getting a new ring light. He says, you haven't been told. You must mean Mrs. Robert Ferrars. And he reveals that he received a letter from Lucy communicating the transfer of her affections to Robert after they were thrown together so much in London. And given the change in his financial circumstances, he felt it was only right to release her. This is also funny to me because, like, he comes in and they're all acting so weird and being like, congratulations, we wish you the best. And how is Mrs. Ferrars? And he's like,
My
Well,
mother
clearly
is
they know that
fine.
my fiance married
my
brother. So,
But also, I love that, like, he was like, I will be disinherited to not break my promise. And Lucy was like, I'm just going to write a little letter being like,
Yeah.
I'm in love with your brother. So actually,
the
could
rich
I
one
marry
now."
him instead?
In a way, everyone wins.
I mean, that's the thing. Edward, fortunately, is going to get what he wanted all along. His mother isn't going to be bothering him. He's going to have some chickens, and he gets to marry Eleanor. Hearing this, Eleanor stands, and her emotions begin to rush out. I believe we have a clip of her response.
Then you are not married.
No.
But they all get up and leave.
Yeah, they all just look at each other and are like, and like wordlessly. They all just wordlessly get up and leave.
Eleanor. Eleanor, I met Lucy when I was very young. Had I had an active profession, I should never have felt such an idle, foolish inclination. My behavior at Norland was very wrong. But I convinced myself that you felt only friendship for me. And that it was my heart alone that I was risking. I've come here with no expectations. Only to profess, now that I am at liberty to do so, that my heart is, and always will be, yours.
Oh, it's so romantic.
And then she just turns to look at him with this like radiant smile through her tears.
Still sobbing.
Yeah.
Still sobbing.
The sob is so good. It's just like all the emotional repression. The walls just fall. She's built all these, she's like shoved it down so hard. And the dam breaks in this moment. And Emma Thompson is
She's
a
so
goddamn
good because she's
genius.
also like the whole scene. She's trying to turn her face away because it's so improper to be sobbing that she's like. It's not until that last moment that she like looks at him. She's spending the whole time trying to like get herself together as she sobs
There's
uncontrollably.
a very funny moment where he's talking and she's like, yes. Like she's like, like batting him away.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it's so good. And outside, Margaret somehow has a new treehouse, and she climbs up and peers inside and sees Edward kneeling, and everyone celebrates. It's time for a double wedding. Colonel Brandon and Marianne and Edward Ferrars and Eleanor process happily out of the village church, surrounded by townspeople and friends. From his estate, Willoughby watches on horseback, looking thunderous.
Okay,
Colonel
love
Brandon
this
tosses
moment.
handfuls of coins to the village children, beaming.
Here's a question. Okay, this is a genuine that I had on my rewatch last night.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a double wedding? Or are Eleanor
I have the
and
same
Edward
question.
just
Ooh.
attending?
Are they already married?
I think they're
Are they
already
already-
married. And they're
Okay.
just
Oh,
attending.
okay.
Which I had always in my life interpreted it as
Read it
double wedding.
as a double wedding.
And then this time I was watching it and I was
Same.
like, I think they're already married. They have like a casual
I think you're
affection.
right.
And I think she's maybe actually in like nice but not wedding clothes. And I think it may just be Marianne and Colonel Brandon's wedding.
I think the same thing. And I also had throughout my whole life read this as a double wedding. And then I was like, they're dressed so much less fancy and they
They
don't get into the carriage.
They don't get into the carriage.
Oh,
they don't
that's
get
so
into their
interesting. I
own
guess-
carriage. They come out with all
Yeah.
of the other guests sort of behind them. I think it might
You're
just
right. I think I
yeah.
just interpreted it as like they're just so much more like humble and like less flashy.
Same. But
yeah,
I think
but that makes a lot of sense. Time for not a double wedding. It's just Colonel Brandon and Marianne's wedding.
But they're
Kate Winslet
Time for
looking
a regular
so chic.
wedding. Oh, well,
Also, I love the moment where you see Fanny just looking so unhappy to be there.
there.
everything has gone so spectacularly wrong for Fanny and Mrs. Ferrars. It's like somehow
Yeah.
Lucy Steele is married to the brother with all the money, and Edward is just some sort of like vicar, and he's married to a
Also,
woman with even less money.
Fanny just seems to like hate the Dashwood girls for inexplicable reasons. And I feel like Marianne marrying like this rich colonel and being happy. She's just like, no, I wanted nothing good for them.
Yeah, she's like, Eleanor got my brother and Marianne got this nice rich man. Like, and then he's throwing
and they're gonna live
coins
together
around.
on the same property because the parish is on Brandon's estate.
That's
and you
so
can imagine that
beautiful.
they will move their mother and Margaret.
You would think so. There must be a cottage also on that estate
There must
somewhere.
be. Yeah,
I'm sure that they probably would live in the house.
They'll probably come
like
into the house,
she's if Marianne is the mistress of the house, I'm sure she will not have her mother in a cottage. She'll be like, you will live at the house.
No
like Mrs.
4-bedroom cottage
Jennings.
for you.
Yeah, they have like so many bedrooms. It's like, sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can scrounge up a shack for you. No, they're all set for life. And like, I love that for them. I think that Fanny, part of her hatred must come from the awareness that she is not doing the right thing, right? Like she's always just like talking herself and she's talking her husband into like, we don't need to do anything for them. But the resentment is like, they're there. And as long as they're there, people might think that she should be doing more for them.
And now she's really connected to them.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
there's
They're
no
like going to
getting out
be
of
moving
it.
in society. They're in her family. And so the fact that she kind of did them dirty is never going away.
Yeah.
That must really stick in her craw.
I
She
also
wanted Mrs.
did-
Dashwood to die at like 42. So she wouldn't have, she was like, well, I hope she'll die soon. I mean, she can't live long. But she's 40. Like,
We're giving them 100 pounds per annum that she's living. She must die immediately.
Exactly. Like she wants them to not exist anymore. And instead they're more prominent than ever.
And then, of course, the Willoughby just looking like empty and sad is so satisfying. You're like, yeah, you are with Miss Gray and you have your 50,000 pounds, but you are of bad character and your life will be devoid of love.
And
that's what you deserve.
Yeah. But watching your ex's wedding from a nearby hillside that's a move.
That's yearning.
That's top tier yearning.
Yeah.
Poor Willoughby. So should we wrap up the discussion here and move on to our rating?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go around and give our ratings of Sense and Sensibility out of 10 wildflower bouquets that are definitely not from the hothouse.
Love it.
Erin, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I'll go 9.5 wildflower bouquets. I think this movie is so close to perfect. The weird age difference between Kate Winslet and Alan Rickman, I think, has knocked off half a wildflower bouquet for me because as much as I tried not to think about it, I couldn't help occasionally thinking about it.
It's very present.
Even though I enjoy his performance so much, there is a part of me that's like, maybe if we just cast someone that was like 40, it would have helped my brain just a tiny bit to so it loses a half a wildflower bouquet, but only for that. I genuinely think everything else about this movie for me is pretty perfect. Every time I rewatch it, I'm like, wait, do I love this even more than the last time I saw it?
And the answer is yes.
Because we keep
The answer is always
yes, and we go farther in time and we have less and less good movies like this, even less and less like good Austen adaptations, good romances with a sense of humor, and I feel like it just makes my appreciation for this one grow. 9.5.
Yeah, I completely agree. Honestly, it's kind of cruel that all of these amazing adaptations came out in the 90s. It made me feel like that's how it was just going to be.
Yes. Well, that's like
There's
all
so many
good
bad
rom-coms.
ones.
All
I
good
know,
rom-coms
yeah.
came out in the 80s and 90s. Maybe we got one in like 2000 and then they were just done. I agree with your assessment completely, Erin. I'm between a 9.5 and a 10 just because my overwhelming feeling is like this movie is perfection. This movie holds up every time I watch it. I love it more than the last. Also learning more about the way that it got made and the fact that you just had like a scrappy woman be like, I have a vision. I'm going to make this vision fucking happen. I'm going to find the perfect writer. I don't give a shit if some studio heads tell me that an actress who hasn't written a screenplay before is like a bad choice. Like, I know.
She assembled a motley crew.
Needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like, Ang Lee, Emma Thompson, no, I'm doing it and I'm getting the money and it's going to be beautiful. And then it was a hit and then it won Oscars. Like that is, it's as close to a 10 as really we've like seen in all of our revisiting.
Yeah. I have to go with a 9.5 as well. I mean, how can I would love to just be different, but like it's so close
it's so
to perfection.
Good. It's so good. And truly the one problem is that Alan Rickman is a little too old.
He's 49.
That is like problem. Yeah,
That's
49
kind of
is like extreme. Like
she's 19.
Yeah. It's pretty extreme. It's hard to get on board. That's the problem with the book as well, is that always to me, it's so hard to get on board with her just marrying Colonel Brandon at the end. And even though they did so much to develop their relationship more, I still feel that way at the end. I'm kind of like, he is 49 though. Yeah. Like maybe he knows some nice 23-year-old men that he could introduce her to who've never impregnated his ward.
I'm very curious how the 2026 adaptation is going to go. I am nervous.
I'm nervous about all these new adaptations.
Same. Yeah, I mean, Persuasion was just so bad.
Persuasion was so...
I will say Fiona Shaw as Mrs. Jennings is inspired casting. Perfect.
I'm gonna try to keep my hopes alive. You know, maybe it will, and they can be different and still good. You know, they can bring different things to the table. I think that there's part of me that resists the parts of Sense and Sensibility that were kind of modernized, because I do get a little bit like that's not how it was in the book. But I appreciate in this version that if they're going to do that, it's done so subtly and so sensitively, and it's really just done to kind of like adjust it to a modern sensibility. Like it's very hard to take Mr. Ferrars as written and get that excited about him, and to give him that little sense of humor, to give him that like emotional sensitivity, to give Eleanor that conversation with him about women's rights in a very subtle way. It does just kind of allow you to relate to the material in a little bit more of a immediate way, and it's really well done. So I can't really ding it for that. But I would also love a version that took a different approach. I don't know.
We shall see. We
shall see.
I like your optimism.
I would love to see a version with a hot 38-year-old Colonel Brandon. Like just see what happens.
He is a hottie. Like Google the cast. I was like, say what you will, but at least Colonel Brandon's gonna be fucking hot. And only like 10 years older than the actress playing Marianne. I don't have high hopes either, Erin. I never do, but like we'll see.
But I like Claire's optimism. I'm gonna try and
I can be optimistic now, and then when it comes out, I'll be like, this dreck should never have been committed.
All of a sudden, you're like, why are they all wine drunk?
Honestly, if I never see a wine drunk character in an Austen film again, I will be happy.
And on that note, that is it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire. Thanks to our wonderful guest, Erin Darke. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe to our channel.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. Our production assistant is Tatiana Knie-Smith, who also edits our video. This episode was edited by John Bahar. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, spread the word to all of your friends about Love to See It.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter Rich Text on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey, Eric Donnelly, Peter Arriaga, Kate Rose, Maura Curran, Melissa Wester, and Hillary Schiff.
We'll be back soon.